Ladies and gentlemen, let me begin today by telling you something I learned a long time ago. Your life does not change by accident. Your life changes by awareness, by decision, and by discipline. Most people are waiting for a big event to shake them awake. They think the wake-up call comes with trumpets and fireworks. But I'm here to tell you, it rarely arrives that way. No, the real wake-up call is much quieter. Sometimes it sounds like a whisper. Sometimes it feels like a sigh you keep ignoring. And if you're not careful, it becomes so familiar that you stop hearing it altogether. You see, success is not built on dramatic moments. Success is built on 100 small choices so subtle most people don't even notice them. And failure, well, failure is the very same story. Failure is simply a few errors in judgment repeated every day, not a catastrophe, not a disaster, just a simple habit you repeat long enough until one day you look up and realize life moved on without you. Let me give you a picture. Two people start at the same place, same job, same paycheck, same opportunities, same calendar. One of them makes a few simple disciplines each day. The other makes a few simple mistakes each day. And here's the secret. Nothing looks different for a while. A week goes by, not much change. A month goes by, still no drama. But give it a year, give it 5, give it 10. Suddenly, these two people look like they came from different planets. One is thriving, the other is surviving. One is building, the other is drifting. And the difference wasn't luck or talent or destiny. The difference was habits, small, almost invisible habits that compound over time. Now, why are we here today? Because too many people are losing the battle quietly. They're not being defeated by storms or tragedies or enemies. They're being defeated by the tiny habits they barely notice. Habits that steal potential drop by drop. Habits that seem harmless today but become costly tomorrow. Habits that keep a person stuck even though they work hard, pray hard, wish hard. So today, I want to shine a light on 5 deadly habits. And I call them deadly because they don't kill you fast. They kill your ambition, your confidence, your discipline, your possibilities. They kill your future in silence. And the moment you can see them clearly, you gain the power to change them. Consider this our wake-up call. Not the loud kind, not the dramatic kind, but the kind that reaches inside and says, you know this is for you. You know something has to change. Because awareness is the first step toward transformation. Once you see the problem, you can never go back to pretending you don't know. So let's begin the journey. Let's open the book on these 5 silent growth killers. And let's make sure that after today, you are never again defeated by something you didn't see coming. Now, before we dive into the first deadly habit, we need to lay a foundation, a framework that explains why habits matter so much. And I'll tell you this right up front. Your life changes when your habits change. Not when you get inspired, not when circumstances improve, not when someone finally believes in you. No, real change begins the moment you begin practicing a new set of daily disciplines. You see, every day you are engaged in a quiet election. And your habits, those little things you think don't matter, are casting votes for the person you're becoming. Some of those votes are for confidence. Some are for doubt. Some are for growth. Some are for decline. But each vote counts, and each vote compounds. You don't become successful overnight. You accumulate success, one disciplined decision at a time. And you don't become unsuccessful overnight. You accumulate failure, one small neglect at a time. Most people don't fail because of something big. They fail because they drift. They drift away from discipline, drift away from purpose, drift away from awareness. They drift into convenience. And convenience, my friends, is a seductive enemy. It feels good, it looks harmless, but it has robbed more people of their potential than hardship ever did. The question I ask people all the time is this: are your habits taking you closer to the life you want or further away from it? And you'd be surprised many people don't know, not because they're careless, but because habits are subtle. They sneak in quietly. They hide inside routines that feel normal. And that's the danger. We do not change what we do not notice. But once you notice, everything shifts. Let me tell you something. Jim Rohn learned early. You cannot transform your life until you first transform your daily behavior. Not your dreams, not your intentions, your behavior. What you do when you wake up, what you consume, how you think, how you respond, how you invest your time, your energy, your attention. Think of your habits like a garden. Some habits are seeds that grow into abundance, discipline, learning, gratitude, consistency. And some habits are weeds, neglect, excuses, procrastination, negative thinking. If you ignore the garden, the weeds will win. If you tend the garden, the seeds will win. The soil does not care which one you plant. It will grow whatever you put in it. That's the nature of habits. They're impartial. They simply respond to the choices you make every day. Your habits are also the architects of your identity. Every time you follow through on a discipline, you tell yourself, I am the kind of person who does what I say. And every time you break a small promise to yourself, you tell yourself, I guess my word doesn't matter. And that, my friends, is how character is either built or broken. So as we move forward, I want you to keep one idea close. Your habits are steering your life even when you think you're standing still. The tragedy is not that people are moving too slowly. The tragedy is that they are moving in the wrong direction without realizing it. And the moment you bring awareness to the direction you're headed, you regain the power to change it. Now that we've laid the foundation, let's begin examining these quiet enemies one by one. Now, let's begin with the first quiet assassin of personal growth, one that has robbed more dreams than fear, failure, or misfortune combined. And that is the deadly habit of waiting for the perfect moment. I meet people all the time who say, Jim, I'm going to start when things settle down, when money improves, when I feel ready, when life gets easier, and I always smile politely and ask, how long have you been waiting for things to get easier? And they sometimes whisper, a long time. And I tell them, well, I have news for you. Life is not designed to get easier. It is designed to give you the opportunity to get stronger. You see, someday is a thief. It steals your courage, your momentum, your potential. Someday is comfortable, someday feels safe, someday lets you avoid risk without feeling guilty. But someday, my friends, is an illusion. I've never seen it on a calendar. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I've looked. Never found someday. The perfect moment is a myth people create to justify hesitation. And hesitation is nothing more than fear dressed in a business suit. Fear will tell you you need more preparation. Fear will tell you you need more research. Fear will tell you you need more time. But what fear is really saying is, please delay your life long enough for your courage to grow weak. And here's the truth. You don't start because you're ready. You start because not starting will cost you too much. Success is built by those who begin before they have perfect confidence, perfect conditions, or perfect clarity. And here's something I want you to remember. Action breeds clarity. Hesitation breeds doubt. The moment you move, even if the movement is small, you begin to see the road. But if you wait, you see nothing except the same four walls you've been staring at for years. Some people say, but Jim, what if I fail? And I say, what if you don't? What if the thing you have been postponing is the very thing that would have changed everything? What if the opportunity of your life showed up while you were still waiting for your mood to improve? Let me tell you a little secret about the successful. They don't wait for perfect decisions. They make decisions and then they make them right. They adjust. They adapt. They learn. They start with a small step and let that small step teach them the next step. So ask yourself today, what dream is sitting on the shelf because you're waiting for the wind to blow in your favor? Stop waiting for the stars to align. The stars don't align, they respond. They rearrange themselves when you take the first step. The world doesn't open its doors to the hesitant. It opens its doors to those who decide. If you want momentum, don't wait for it. Create it. Start with the smallest action you can take today. Don't worry about perfection. Worry about intention. Worry about direction. Because the moment you begin, the universe has no choice but to begin moving with you. And that is the cure for this deadly habit. Start where you are with what you have and start today. Now let's talk about the second dangerous habit, one that quietly shapes the lives of millions without them ever noticing, living by your feelings instead of your values. And let me tell you, that is a risky way to run your life. Why? Because feelings are wonderful servants, but terrible masters. They're unpredictable. They're inconsistent. They change with the weather, the traffic, the temperature, the mood of the person sitting across from you. And if you try to build a successful life using feelings as your foundation, you're going to find yourself sitting on shaky ground. Let me put it this way. Feelings will say, I don't feel like it today. Values will say, do it anyway. And the average person? The average person listens to their feelings. That's why they only read when they feel like reading, only save money when they feel like saving, only exercise when they feel energized, and only work on their goals when the stars align. And then they wonder why progress is slow. See, discipline doesn't ask how you feel. Discipline asks what you committed to. And commitment doesn't check the temperature of your emotions before it moves. Commitment says, we said we would, so we will. Let me tell you something Jim Rohn learned early in his career. Discipline is choosing what you want most over what you want now. And what you want now is not always the same as what you want most. What you want now is comfort, convenience, ease. What you want most is confidence, strength, success. And those two desires are constantly at battle. Most people lose that battle not because they lack potential, but because they let their feelings negotiate with their future. I'll start tomorrow. I'll go later. I'll try next week. These are feelings pretending to be wisdom. Don't fall for it. The price you pay for comfort today becomes the regret you carry tomorrow. And here's something interesting. When you live by feelings, you develop a habit of inconsistency. And inconsistency erodes trust. Not trust with others, trust with yourself. And once you stop trusting yourself, discipline becomes nearly impossible. Because how do you follow a leader you don't trust even when the leader is you? So what's the solution? You build your life on values. Values don't waver. Values don't panic. Values don't wake up grumpy. Values don't disappear when you're tired. Your values are your compass, your anchor, your internal governing system. When you obey your values, your life strengthens. When you obey your feelings, your life weakens. And here's a little secret. The more disciplined you become, the better you feel. Not the other way around. You don't wait for motivation to act. You act your way into motivation. You don't wait to feel strong. You build strength by overcoming the feeling of weakness. And someday, maybe not today, maybe not next week, but someday, your feelings start respecting your values. Your feelings begin to follow your example instead of leading it. So remember this. Your feelings are guests. Your values are homeowners. Stop letting the guests run the house. Now let's move to the third deadly habit, one that is especially dangerous in the modern world because it hides behind convenience, comfort, and entertainment. And that is the habit of consuming more than you create. Let me tell you something I discovered early in my career. You cannot hope to harvest what you never planted. And yet, so many people are trying their best to harvest success out of a field where they've only been consuming, not planting, not producing, not contributing, just consuming. Now, consumption isn't the enemy. We all read, we learn, we enjoy, we relax. But the danger comes when consumption becomes the dominant activity of your life. When you're always taking in and rarely putting out. When the hours slip away not in creativity, but in scrolling. Not in contribution, but in distraction. Not in building your future, but in escaping your present. Some people are so busy watching other people live their lives that they forget to live their own. They're consuming entertainment, consuming opinions, consuming comparisons, consuming noise. And the more they consume, the less they create, which means the less confidence they feel. Because confidence doesn't come from watching, confidence comes from doing, from building, from producing something that didn't exist before you touched it. Let's break it down into 3 forms of consumption. 1, mental consumption. This is the endless flow of content, videos, posts, news, gossip, opinions. There's nothing wrong with staying informed, but remember, the mind was built to think, not to absorb nonstop. If you drown the mind in noise, you silence your creativity. Emotional consumption. Some people consume validation. They need likes, approval, attention. And the more they consume it, the more they crave it. But external validation is like sugar tastes good for a moment, but it doesn't nourish you. 3. Physical consumption. Comfort, convenience, ease, the path of least resistance. But remember, muscles grow by resistance, character grows by responsibility, and confidence grows by effort. Now, the question is, what does it mean to create? It doesn't mean you need to write a book, start a business, or build a monument. Creating simply means leaving the day with more value in it than when you entered. It means contributing ideas, energy, effort, kindness, progress. It means producing something that moves your life forward, even a little. Write a paragraph, learn a skill, build a habit, start a task, make a plan, practice your craft, serve someone, improve your surroundings. Creation is anything that builds, strengthens, or elevates. And here's the beautiful part. The moment you start creating, your life starts accumulating. You accumulate confidence, you accumulate self-respect, you accumulate momentum, and momentum is the great miracle of progress. Once it starts moving, it gets easier to maintain. Remember this simple Jim Rohn principle. To have more, you must first become more, and to become more, you must begin producing more than you consume. Be a creator, not just a collector. Creators shape the world. Consumers simply watch it happen. Now let's turn to the fourth deadly habit, one Jim Rohn warned about more than almost anything else, and that is the quiet, corrosive habit of keeping the wrong company. My friends, if there is one truth that can change your entire destiny, it is this. You become the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. When I first heard that idea, I checked my watch and said, well, I'd better start choosing more carefully. Because it's true, whether you notice it or not, the people around you are shaping your standards, your expectations, your habits, and even your future. Spend enough time with people who complain, and soon you'll find a complaint in your own pocket. Spend time with people who gossip, and you'll start thinking in rumors. Spend time with people who criticize everything, and soon everything will look flawed to you. Not because you wanted it that way, but because the environment trained you that way. Your associations are contagious. Their attitudes spread. Their beliefs leak. Their habits rub off. Let me introduce you to something I call association poverty. It happens when you surround yourself with people who normalize mediocrity, people who think discipline is too hard, dreams are unrealistic, effort is unnecessary, and growth is optional. Stay around that long enough, and you'll start shrinking without realizing it. You'll start lowering your goals because everyone around you has already lowered theirs. Now, some people stay in the wrong company out of loyalty. Some stay out of fear. Some stay because it's familiar. But familiarity is not the same as destiny, and comfort is not the same as growth. And remember, you can love people without letting them lead your life. Let's talk about the subtle influence of the wrong crowd. They don't ruin your life all at once. Oh no, they do it quietly. One complaint at a time. One discouraging comment at a time. One sarcastic remark about your ambition. One seed of doubt planted gently in your mind. And before you know it, you stop believing in yourself, not because of your experience, but because of your environment. But here's the good news. You can fix this quickly with what Jim Rohn called the 3 levels of association. 1. Disassociate where it's necessary. Some relationships are too costly, too negative, too draining, too destructive. You don't need to make a speech or stage a dramatic exit. Just quietly excuse yourself from the environment that's shrinking you. 2. Limit where it's wise. Some people you can't eliminate entirely, family, co-workers, long-time connections, but you can limit the influence. See them less. Engage differently. Keep your emotional door locked when negativity comes knocking. 3. Expand where you're inspired. This is the most powerful part. Find people, books, mentors, groups, thinkers, leaders who lift your standards just by being around them. You'd be amazed how much progress you'll make when you start spending more time with people who live the kind of life you're aiming for. And don't say, Jim, I don't know anyone successful. That's no excuse. You can read their books. You can listen to their lectures. You can absorb their philosophy. You can learn from people you've never met and be mentored by voices from across the world. Association is not limited to proximity. It's defined by influence. Choose people who speak life to your goals, not death to your ambition. Choose people who want to see you rise, not shrink. Choose people whose presence awakens your potential instead of exhausting it. Because make no mistake, the company you keep is shaping the person you're becoming. And if you want a better future, one of the quickest ways to get there is to upgrade your associations. Now we arrive at the fifth and most dangerous habit of all, the one that rarely gets talked about, yet silently determines your confidence, your identity, and your destiny. And that is the habit of breaking promises to yourself. Let me tell you something I learned long ago. A person who cannot trust themselves cannot lead themselves. And if you can't lead yourself, life becomes a constant struggle. Because every plan, every goal, every dream depends on one thing: your ability to do what you said you would do. Now think about this for a moment. When you make a promise to someone else and you break it, trust erodes. They begin to question your reliability, your integrity, your commitment. But when you break a promise to yourself, something even more dangerous happens. You begin to question your own character. Most people don't realize this. They think it's just me, no one else knows, but you know, and you are the most important witness in your life. Every time you tell yourself you'll start tomorrow and you don't, you weaken the framework of your self-respect. Every time you say you'll read, you'll exercise, you'll work on your goals, you'll save that money, and you don't, you're not just breaking a habit. You're breaking identity. Here's what Jim Rohn discovered. The smallest broken promises create the biggest internal damage because they teach you not to believe yourself. And once you stop believing yourself, motivation becomes meaningless. Planning becomes meaningless. Goal setting becomes meaningless. Because deep down, you know you won't follow through. Now, here's the good news. This habit is reversible, beautifully reversible, because trust, even with yourself, is rebuilt the same way it was broken, one small promise at a time. Don't start with grand commitments. Don't promise yourself a 5 a.m. routine, a 2-hour gym session, or a 300-page reading plan. That's too much weight for a weak foundation. Start small. Start with what I call micro promises, tiny commitments that take only a few minutes but carry tremendous symbolic power. I will walk for 5 minutes. I will read 1 page. I will clean 1 corner of the room. I will drink 1 glass of water. I will write for 2 minutes. These tiny promises don't change your life overnight, but they change something more important. They change your identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, your internal voice says, we're becoming reliable again. And reliability becomes confidence. Confidence becomes discipline. Discipline becomes momentum. And momentum becomes transformation. You see, people often think the big achievements build character. But really, it's the small, consistent victories. It's the daily demonstration that your word matters. Because once you believe your own word, nothing can stop you. And let me give you this final thought on this habit. A person who keeps promises to themselves becomes unstoppable, not because life gets easier, but because their integrity becomes stronger than their feelings. That's why this habit is the deadliest when it's broken and the most powerful when it's restored. Fix this one, and almost everything else begins to rise. Now that we've uncovered the 5 deadly habits, let's talk about the part everyone is waiting for, the turnaround. And let me assure you, transformation is not a mystery. It's not magic. It's not reserved for the gifted or the lucky. It is built on a simple Formula 1 that anyone can follow, anyone can practice, anyone can master. Awareness, decision, action. That's the formula. 3 phases, 3 steps, 3 commitments that, if you embrace them sincerely, can rebuild your entire life from the inside out. Let's begin with awareness. Awareness is the moment you finally say, now I see my problem clearly. And believe me, that moment is priceless. Most people never reach it because they spend their lives defending their habits, excusing their patterns, justifying their choices. And as long as you defend the problem, you cannot fix the problem. But the moment you become aware, honestly aware, you reclaim your power, Because you cannot change what you refuse to acknowledge, then comes decision. Decision is not a wish, not a hope, not a desire. Decision means you've made up your mind. You've drawn a line in the sand. You've told yourself, this version of me is done. A new one begins today. Decision is when you stop negotiating, stop postponing, stop blaming. You take full ownership of your future. And there's something magical about that moment, because once a person decides, the universe begins to rearrange itself around that decision, and then we move to action. Now, action doesn't mean you overhaul your entire life in 24 hours. That's too heavy a burden to carry. No, what action really means is you take a small step today, and tomorrow you take another. And the day after that, you take another. Action is the daily expression of your decision. It's how you prove to life and to yourself that you meant what you said. Let me teach you something important. Success is nothing more than the long-term accumulation of small daily disciplines. And failure is nothing more than the long-term accumulation of small daily neglects. Once you understand that, the path becomes clear. If you want a new life, start with a few simple, repeatable disciplines. A morning routine that grounds your mind. A reading habit that refines your philosophy. A physical practice that strengthens your body. A financial discipline that secures your future. A nighttime reflection that keeps you honest. These don't need to be extreme. They don't need to be dramatic. They don't need applause. They just need consistency. If you start today one discipline, one improvement, one promise, you will look up in 3 months and not recognize the person in the mirror. Not because you became someone new, but because you finally became the person you were meant to be. Let me give you a perspective. Most people overestimate what they can do in a week and underestimate what they can do in a year. But a year of steady discipline, a year of small improvements, a year of keeping promises to yourself, my friends, that can change your income, your confidence, your relationships, your opportunities, your entire destiny. If you take one thing from today's message, let it be this. You don't need to change your whole life today. You only need to change the direction. Once the direction is right, the destination takes care of itself. You are not too late. You are not behind. You are not disqualified. Your future's waiting for a different set of habits. Nothing more, nothing less. And if you begin the turnaround today, quietly and humbly, you will be amazed how quickly the tides begin to shift in your favor. Well, my friends, we've arrived at the end of our journey together, but let me tell you something important. Endings are never really endings, not in personal development, not in growth, not in the business of changing your life. Endings are simply invitations, doors swinging open, waiting for you to step through. And that's exactly what this moment is for, an invitation. Today, we talked about 5 deadly habits, 5 quiet thieves that slip into your life when you're not watching, 5 patterns that don't ruin your life all at once. They ruin it slowly, silently, politely. But now you see them. Now you understand them. And once you see a problem clearly, you can never pretend it isn't there. That's the gift of awareness. It's also the responsibility, because a wake-up call only matters if you answer it. You know, I began this talk with a simple picture. 2 people who start in the same place, same opportunities, same resources, same calendar, and yet 10 years later, their lives look like they came from different worlds. One built habits that carried him upward. The other built habits that pulled him downward. Not because of fate, not because of luck, but because of choices repeated daily. And now you stand at that same crossroads. The question isn't, will you ever change? The question is, when will you decide? Your life isn't waiting for the perfect moment. It's waiting for your commitment. It's waiting for the day you stop saying someday and start saying now. It's waiting for the moment you realize that nothing outside of you has to change for everything inside you to begin transforming. You don't need a thunderclap. You don't need a miracle. You don't need permission. You simply need one decision that says, I am done living below my potential. I am done negotiating with my old habits. I am done shrinking my life to make it comfortable. Let me leave you with a classic Jim Rohn reminder. If you don't like where you are, change it. You're not a tree. The world doesn't reward intention. It rewards discipline. It rewards consistency. It rewards the person who shows up again and again and again. And here's something beautiful. When you rise, others rise with you. Your courage becomes a model. Your growth becomes a map. Your discipline becomes an invitation. Your becoming is not just for you. It becomes shelter, inspiration, direction for others who are silently hoping someone would prove that change is possible. So take this wake-up call and answer it boldly. Take these 5 habits and reverse them deliberately. Take today and make it the day that changes the next 10 years of your life. Because you are not done. You are not behind. You are right on time for your own life, your own potential, your own becoming. This is your moment. Don't let it pass quietly.